Now, Angela Rayner has criticised government plans to tighten immigration rules, calling them un-British and a breach of trust.
Well, under the proposals, most migrants would have to wait twice as long for permanent residency, rising from 5 to 10 years, with longer waits for some refugees.
Well, the Home Office says the changes are fair and are needed to protect public finances, but the plans are facing growing criticism within the Labour Party.
Well, let's speak now to former political advisor Oscar Redrop, who joins us in the studio now. Morning.
The woman who could bring down a prime minister, Angela Rayner, is back, and she is not finished. There is a particular kind of political energy that Westminster has never quite known how to handle. It is not the kind that arrives in a pinstripe suit with an Oxbridge accent and a rehearsed soundbite. It is rawer than that, sharper. The kind that walks into a room and changes the temperature. Angela Rayner has always had it, and right now, quietly, deliberately, and with considerable strategic precision, she is deploying it. Before we get into all of it, if you are watching this for the first time, welcome to British Energy, where we cut through the spin, the theater, and the carefully managed press releases to give you the real story of British politics. If you have been here before, you already know what we do. We do not waste your time. So stay with us, because today's story is one that will not only shape the next general election, it could reshape the entire direction of the Labour Party. Please, do yourself a favor and stay until the end, because the details matter enormously. Let us set the scene. Labour won an extraordinary parliamentary majority in July 2024, the largest since Tony Blair's landslide. The mandate was historic. The hope was real. And yet, less than a year into government, the polling numbers are dire. Public confidence in Keir Starmer's leadership has been sliding with a consistency that should be alarming to anyone inside Number 10. The question that was once whispered behind closed doors is now being asked rather loudly. Is Sir Keir Starmer actually capable of delivering what Labour promised? Those are her words, not a Labour backbencher's words, not the words of a disillusioned voter quoted in a focus group. The words of the former Deputy Prime Minister herself. And if you think that is merely a concerned colleague offering constructive criticism, then we should talk, because no one in British politics says something like that without knowing exactly what they are doing. Let us be precise about who Angela Rayner is, because context matters. She was born in Stockport, left school at 16 without qualifications, became a care worker, joined the trade union movement, and by her mid-30s had risen to become deputy leader of the Labour Party, and following the 2024 election, Deputy Prime Minister. Hers is a story that Labour, when it remembers what it is supposed to stand for, finds genuinely compelling. Working class, authentic, unpolished in the best sense of the word. She resigned last year. The circumstances were, to put it generously, uncomfortable. A row over the underpayment of stamp duty on a property she had purchased, a matter that dragged on, was investigated, attracted the sort of tabloid coverage designed to be maximally damaging, and ultimately ended with her departure from the cabinet. It was the kind of story that looked from the outside like the end of a senior political career. Because here she is, the Member of Parliament for Ashton-under-Lyne, back on the national stage, and saying things in public that no loyal lieutenant says about a sitting Prime Minister. She told an audience, and this is important, that the change people voted for needs to be seen. It needs to be felt. Not that it is coming, not that it is being planned, that it needs to be seen and felt. Present tense, urgent, implying quite clearly that it is not being seen and felt at the moment. Now, if Keir Starmer's communications team is not circling that quote in red marker, they should be, because that is not a speech. That is a... If this kind of forensic political analysis is what you are after, the kind that doesn't dress things up or talk down to you, then subscribe to British Energy right now. Hit that button. It takes 2 seconds and it helps this channel do exactly what it is here to do. Keep you properly informed. Rayner went further. She turned her attention to Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's proposed immigration reforms, specifically the proposals to change the rules around indefinite leave to remain for people already living and working in Britain. And here, Rayner did something rather clever. She framed her opposition not in the language of progressive idealism, but in the language of British values, of fairness, of keeping your word. Many people came here to Britain, she said, on the understanding that if they worked in the sectors where we needed them, obeyed the law, and paid their taxes, they could stay. To change that now, she argued, would be a breach of trust. She called it un-British. which is, when you think about it, a masterclass in political framing. She is not saying open the borders. She is saying we made a promise. You do not move the goalposts on people who played by the rules. That is not who we are. Whether you agree with her position or not, and there are perfectly reasonable arguments on multiple sides of the immigration debate, you have to acknowledge the political skill involved. Rayner is speaking to the labor base that feels the party has lost its moral compass, to the working class communities that feel abandoned, and simultaneously to the moderate instinct for fair play that cuts across party lines in Britain. She is, in short, building a coalition, and she is doing it while technically not running for anything at all. That is what makes this moment so fascinating. She is not declaring, she is positioning, and in British politics, positioning is everything. She is not declaring, she is positioning, and in British politics, positioning is everything. Labour's poll ratings have slumped. The reasons are by now familiar. The means testing of the winter fuel payment for pensioners, which went down disastrously with the public. The general sense that the government has spent more time managing expectations downward than delivering tangible improvements, and a prime minister who, despite his undeniable intelligence and administrative competence, has consistently struggled to inspire. Keir Starmer is, by most assessments, an excellent lawyer. Whether he is a great political leader remains very much an open question. We should be fair to Starmer here, because fairness is what separates analysis from commentary. He inherited a broken economy, a fractured public realm, and years of conservative governance that left institutions hollowed out and public finances in considerable difficulty. No prime minister walks into an easy situation, and there is something to be said for a leader who is sober, serious, and not given to the kind of performative chaos that defined his predecessor's tenure. But governing is not just administration. It is communication. It is narrative. It is the ability to make people feel in their daily lives that something is shifting, that the person in number 10 is fighting for them. And on that measure, the measure of political electricity, of connection, of the sense that this government has a beating heart, Starmer has found it genuinely difficult. Rayner, whatever else you think about her, has never had that problem. She speaks the language of people who are struggling. She does not sound like a policy document. She sounds like someone who means it. Now, let us address the elephant in the room, her tax affairs, because you cannot discuss Angela Rayner's political prospects without discussing the circumstances of her resignation, and it would be intellectually dishonest to pretend otherwise. The allegation, which she consistently denied, was that she had underpaid stamp duty on a property by failing to designate it as her main home for the purposes of capital gains tax. After a lengthy and, frankly, dispiriting saga, she resigned. The matter did not result in criminal charges, but the political damage was real, and it gave her opponents, inside Labour as much as outside it, a ready-made argument against her. Her response to that, as best as we can read it, has been to wait, to allow time to pass, to let the story become historical rather than current, and to re-emerge on her own terms, on territory she has chosen, making arguments she believes in. It is a strategy that has worked before for politicians who were written off too early. Whether it will work for her remains to be seen. But the fact that she is being discussed, seriously, in the national press, in Westminster conversations, as a potential future leader, suggests that the write-off was premature. We are building something here at British Energy, a space for politics that treats you as the intelligent adult you are. If you have not subscribed yet, please do. It is how we grow, it is how we keep the lights on, and frankly, it is how we keep bringing you the analysis that the mainstream outlets to us and will not. Subscribe now. You will not regret it. So what actually happens next? This is the question that matters. There are, broadly speaking, 3 possible trajectories from here. The first is that Labour's fortunes recover. Keir Starmer finds his footing, the economy begins to show genuine improvement, public services start to feel the benefit of investment, and the polls move in a direction that makes a leadership challenge look not merely risky but reckless. In that scenario, Rayner's recent interventions are a footnote, a moment of mild inter-party turbulence, swiftly forgotten. The second possibility is that Labour continues to struggle, but holds together, a party in difficulty but not in crisis, grinding towards the next election without a dramatic rupture. In that case, the leadership question simmers without boiling. Rayner remains a figure of importance, a voice the party cannot ignore, but without the circumstances that would force a definitive moment of decision. The third possibility is the dramatic one, the one Westminster insiders are now discussing with increasing frequency. If Labour's poll numbers do not recover, if by the middle of this Parliament, the Conservatives, or indeed Reform, are consistently ahead by margins that would produce a change of government, then the pressure on Starmer becomes existential. And in that scenario, the question of who could replace him stops being hypothetical. Rayner's name is at the top of many of those conversations, not because she is without flaws, but because she represents something Labour urgently needs to rediscover, a connection to the communities it was created to serve. The woman who left school at 16 and worked her way up through the union movement speaks to millions of people in a way that a former director of public prosecutions, however competent, sometimes cannot. There is also the question of what a Rayner leadership will actually look like. Would she be more interventional economically? Almost certainly. Would she take a harder line against the immigration proposal she has already publicly criticized? That seems clear. Would she be, in the broadest sense, more willing to be bold, to take risks, to govern with the kind of instinct that wins loyalty rather than merely respect? Her supporters would say absolutely yes. Her critics would point to the stamp duty affair and ask whether the scrutiny of leadership would expose further difficulties.
These are not hypothetical questions anymore. They are the questions that Labour members, Labour MPs, and Labour strategists are beginning to ask in earnest. And the fact that they are being asked at all is itself the story. The woman who left school at 16 and worked her way up speaks to millions of people in a way that a former director of public prosecutions sometimes cannot. Britain is at an unusual juncture. The two-party system that defined the 20th century is under sustained pressure from multiple directions. The Conservatives are rebuilding, slowly and awkwardly, after a period of quite spectacular self-destruction. Reform UK continues to attract voters who feel unrepresented by either of the traditional parties. And Labour, despite its historic majority, is finding that winning an election and holding a country's confidence are two very different things. Into all of this, Angela Rayner has chosen this moment to speak up, to break cover, to remind the party and the country that she is here, that she has opinions, and that she is not done. Now, a brief and sincere word before we wrap this up. If you have made it this far, and thank you genuinely for staying, then you are exactly the kind of viewer British Embassy exists for. You care. You want to understand what is actually happening, not just the surface version. You want the context, the history, the analysis that goes beyond the headline. That is what we try to give you every single time. So please, if you have not already, subscribe to British Energy. Tell a friend. Share this video. Every subscription helps this channel keep doing exactly what it does. Serious, unflinching, properly British political analysis. Angela Rayner is not the story because she is causing trouble. She is the story because she is asking the questions that matter. Is Labour delivering? Are the people who voted for change actually seeing it? Can a party that won so comprehensively afford to drift? The fact that it is a former Deputy Prime Minister asking them, rather than a journalist or an opposition spokesperson, tells you everything you need to know about where the Labour Party currently stands. Watch this space, because in British politics, nothing stays still for long. And at British Energy, we will be right here when the next move comes. Subscribe, stay curious, take a breath, stay informed, and we will see you in the next one.